Well, my teaching philosophy is pretty simple. It's know my learners, and I've always been like that. And when I talk about knowing my learners, it's finding out about my learners' attitudes, behaviours, interests, where they hail from, things like ethnicities, etc. And I think this is really important. It sort of sets the scene for us, because it's not until I actually do that that I'm able to connect with my learners and my learners with me. And I tend not to rush into the formal side of teaching to begin with, because I like to do all I call basic things to get to extract all this information from my learners. My learners trust me. It may not happen straight away because it takes time. My teachers didn't take time or even bother to know who I was as a person. I came over as an 11-year-old, and it's supposed to be an exciting opportunity. I had Cook Island as my first language, which I still have. I had very little English, and of course I was going to struggle, but no one in those first years actually took time to know me as a person. And I just think, and I think that's why I'm so passionate and insistent on those basic principles, like i.e. know your learner. It's because I've experienced it. I know what it feels like. And it doesn't matter either if the PI students who I'm dealing with were born here. It doesn't actually matter, because their parents are Pacific Islanders, that they have Pacific Island values that have been instilled in them, and probably 9 out of 10 they speak their mother tongue language better than English.
How I look at teaching is very early on you have to ensure that, especially with the Pacific Island boys, that their eyes are up, that they've got that confidence about them, that they know, yep, I can actually achieve here, and then you start to teach. I find the easiest way to engage with the Pacific Island students is actually just to be yourself. They have this big radar that spins around on top of their head that they can pick a fraud, they can pick the guy that's trying to be Pacific Island-like, or trying to go over the top to include them. The most important thing about dealing with people and any person is that you can actually say their names right. And it's the same with our Pacific Island learners. Like, you've got a sung in your class, you've got a sung in your class. Learn how to say it. Learn how to say each person's name. Because I would hate if people came and talked to me like, hey, Cal, what are you doing? And, or Mr. Jones, or, I've got a real Carl Jones, very simple name. And I expect people to call me by my name. It's not too much to ask, or not too much for anyone to ask for their name to be pronounced as well. Not only are we dealing with, English, but then we're also dealing with very trade-specific terminologies, trade-specific ideals, and all those sorts of things. And so getting the guys to learn what the difference between a batten and a pearl and a truss, a scotia, a fascia, a barge board, and these are just parts of a house, which is hardly even part of the trade that I teach, but they are essential parts of a building which they have to know where they are. It's like we have to teach them a whole another language as well. And so when you start to see these guys come in early on in the year and they look at you like, what on earth are you talking about? To be able to come out and speak building with you or speak plumbing with you at the end of it, and you're like, wow, these guys have come from here to this new level, and it's an awesome thing to see. If I could tell you guys one thing, it would be engage your learners so that their eyes are up. Get them early so that they're looking at you with confidence, that at the start of the year they're feeling, yep, I can achieve, I can achieve, I can achieve. And sure, if during the year they have a few knockbacks and they, miss a few things here and there, remind them how it was at the beginning. Make them lift their eyes back up and keep walking on.
For me, it comes quite naturally. Just spending time with them, getting to know them, asking them about their background, finding that common ground, because I'm Pacific myself, and just usually with a touch of humour, usually bridges the gap as well. Well, we're stuck with each other for a whole year, so I usually tell them that, and I usually say to them, well, I'm not here to be your friend, I'm here to teach you because I care about you, and from this day forward you need to take ownership, and this is going to be our own little village that we're going to create. We build our culture right from the word go. To be a role model, I mean a leader in general, you have to practice what you preach. And it's not just about being a leader inside the classroom, it's outside on the streets. I'm very staunch in that. They're going to look to me, and they look to me, and when I share my testimony about where I came from and where I am now and where I'm going to, I always let them know that it is achievable, and if I can do it, so can you. When we deliver our work, we should always never assume that one model fits all. And when we used to go through our workbooks and practical, you would always compare the workbooks with your life stories and have an open discussion about and include their stories where they can relate. A lot of role modelling, a lot of visual, just to get them engaged so then they can take ownership and enjoy their journey and their learning. When they arrived, I think they felt that they really belonged straight away because we had already created that culture in our classroom and they could relate to it. It was that sense of belonging, that family environment. And yes, they did go through a lot of stuff, and they had, with their upbringing, with the island way, the discipline, and them being able to come over to us and to express what was going on at home, and to really be on their case to encourage them. A lot of tough love. Telling them how it is, not prettying everything up and making sure that they took ownership of making those decisions. We can crowd them with support in that, but then sometimes we need to step back and let them take ownership.
I think a basic geographical awareness of the Pacific and who's from where and some of the cultural differences between island groups and islands is for me it's an interesting, it's a point of interest, and if I'm obviously interested in where they're coming from, then with any luck they'll be interested in what I've got to tell them. I mean, general rules you apply to anybody. You treat people like you'd like to be treated yourself, though you want to be aware of some cultural differences or cultural practices that might be acceptable in some and not in other cultures.
For our students, we invite them in when they enrol into the program. And bring them in and actually talk to the students, really getting to know them, starting to build that relationship that we like to do with our students, but also to see what might get in the way of their learning. So looking at what are their outside responsibilities in the community, family, just really looking at those things that can trip an adult learner up. Acknowledging the Pacific nation that they're actually from. So I know a lot of people sort of bring them into like they're one nation, but they're not. Each individual nation has their own particular, very uniqueness about them. And each student is very unique from those different Pacific islands. I think it helps us in giving the student tools to help that juggling act. So that the many different hats that they have to wear, and being able to give time for that study. We also visit our students in the workplace, which gives it that added building that relationship, as well as we really advocate for an open door policy. So we are really encouraging the students to come into us, and also I think it's for us, we've actually purchased dictionaries from the different nations so that we ourselves can help with the words, because we get quite stuck on translating the words. So you can see them trying to translate the word back into their own language and then bringing it back out again into English. Get to know your student well, build that relationship. Take time when the student comes into the room to acknowledge the student. Yeah, just time. Really time, giving that student time to talk about what may be happening for them.
Every little thing helps students. It's not just complimenting them on the fact that they've succeeded in an exam. It is just making them feel welcome, making them feel that, they can come back. It's having that open, welcoming environment so that day after day when they have to come into class, they do want to come into class. Try to look at people's backgrounds, your own experiences, your own life experiences, because the student is no different from yourself, regardless of the culture. But it is being mindful of everything that may be there in the background, that may hinder a student to actually attend course. It's just having the understanding, the empathy, really, with that person, and looking at them as an individual rather, an individual first and then a class second sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's just really important to understand the individual, their culture, their background. And it's about understanding those sort of things. For a student, it may not be because they don't want to be at course, it may be they have no choice, and it's having other mechanisms or other resources that they can access while they are away and not attending class. When you're teaching, I think you've got to build on the first few months that a student's here. They must be encouraged, they must be given the confidence that they can complete what they're enrolled in, because if they get a bad experience at the very beginning, it really is off-putting, and it is pretty much the reason why a lot of students sort of pull out or stop coming to Polytech, because their first exam, it just bombed. Nobody explained to them why, or they weren't given another chance. It does take a really long time for somebody to get the guts up to actually enrol and then to even attend classes. It is just that, it's being able to have acknowledgement, to celebrate the accomplishment that you've done, whether it's the whole thing at the very end, or whether it is just one of many exams that you complete.